and welcome to the Science Trek podcast about mammoths. Glad you could be here, Evie and Garrett.
I love learning about mammoths.
Me too. Mammoths are ancient cousins of the modern elephant. They became extinct about 11,000 years ago.
In this podcast, paleontologists Christopher Hill and Susan Miller answer questions about mammoths.
Let's start. Professor Hill, how big did mammoths get?
They got pretty big. They got bigger than modern-day elephants, some of them. The Columbian mammoth was a little bit bigger than a modern-day elephant, and then some of them, like the woolly mammoth, was a little bit smaller than a present-day elephant.
Professor Miller, how much did mammoths weigh?
Oh, they weigh a lot, yeah. As Christopher was describing the sizes, the Columbian mammoth was the very largest and could weigh well over 10 tons. The smaller cousin, the woolly mammoth, probably more in the 6 to 9 ton range. And in this case, we're talking, since we like to talk about the biggest, probably talking about the males. Males of all elephant species would be larger and heavier than the females. And of course, when they're born, we suspect they were about the size of a modern-day African elephant baby. So their weight can go anywhere from 6 to 12 tons.
How much could they eat in a day, and how do you know?
Well, they ate a lot of food. They ate grasses mostly, and we know that partly because we can look at modern-day elephants and see how they eat. But we also have the results of their eating. We have fossil poop. We have the dung of the mammoths from some caves, and so we know a little bit about the kinds of food they ate and how much and what size their dung was and stuff like that.
Just so you know, mammoth dung, or poop, was about the size of a bowling ball.
Ew!
Sorry to interrupt. Let's get back to the questions.
Okay, Professor Miller, can you tell from the bones if the mammoth was a male or a female?
Of course, we do have some, as Christopher was explaining, we have fossil dung or fossil poop. We also have mummies from Eurasia, and those mummies still had a lot of their tissues intact, so we can see the difference between males and females that way. But the whole elephant family, including mammoths, is very much like other large mammals, and that is there's very often a size difference between males and females. Males generally running larger, so if you have a whole bunch of mammoth leg bones and teeth and other skeletal parts, you can usually sort of sort them out between males and females.
How smart were mammoths?
Well, they had big brains, partly because they were big animals, but they also were pretty smart animals. They lived in groups. The moms and the sisters and the little babies all lived together, and they were very social animals, just like modern elephants. So they were pretty smart animals, probably were able to remember things, and because they lived for a long time, there were probably different things that different mammoths remembered from their lives and would bring the group with them. And so they probably were very smart animals.
How long did an individual mammoth live? How long were they on Earth?
An individual mammoth, based on what we know, studying their skeletons and their teeth and how the teeth are worn, and also looking at modern elephants, that once they get out of babyhood, they had a good chance of living to be 60 to 80 years old, just like modern elephants do. The different types of mammoths had a different fossil history, and we don't. For example, the Columbian mammoth probably, as a species, lived pretty close to 1 million years. So you would have been able to identify Columbian mammoths throughout that whole period of time, wherever you found them in the world.
What's the difference between a woolly mammoth or a Columbian mammoth?
Well, probably if we would have been able to look at them, if we were living at the same time and were able to compare the two, the first thing you would notice would be that one is a lot more hairier than the other, and then the second thing would be that the woolly mammoth was probably a little smaller. Those are the two things you'd notice right off.
Professor, why did mammoths go extinct?
Well, I'm going to reveal something, and that is a lot of people think that scientists probably have all the answers, and we certainly don't. When we're looking at fossils, we have to make some guesses. We have to use some detective work to try to find out about what they were, what they looked like, where they lived, and maybe why they died out or became extinct. Right now, we have 3 ideas that might have contributed to the loss of mammoths. It would still be a lot of fun to have them out here on the landscape in Idaho. The first one is that there was a fairly significant change in climate at the end of the Ice Age. So for various reasons, there may not have been enough food or enough local water available. The other one is that we do have, as Christopher pointed out, the association of human beings with mammoths in southern and northern Idaho and Montana. And we find their weapons of the people, and we find the broken bones of the mammoths. So we think that maybe some people feel that humans may have killed too many mammoths, and so they could not survive. And the other one is there may be a question of disease, that some type of disease was carried into the mammoth population, and that contributed to them dying off as well.
Thanks for answering our questions, professors.
And thank you for listening to our podcast. If you want to learn more about Science Trek topics, be sure to subscribe to the Science Trek podcast.
And for more information about mammoths, check out the Science Trek website. You'll find it at sciencetrek.org. Bye!
Funding for Science Trek is provided by the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, the Idaho National Laboratory, and supporters like you. Thank you.